Hey, this is Mama Jane.
And this is Mama Vicky. Welcome to the Cycles and Sanctity podcast.
I'm a Billings ovulation method instructor and a certified Catholic mindset coach.
And I'm a labor and delivery nurse, an IBCLC, and a La Leche League leader.
We're here to share with you the beauty and the pain of your cycles.
Have you considered honoring your cycle throughout the journey of your womanhood?
Have you ever considered your cycle as a tool toward your holiness?
Well, sisters, it is. We're excited to walk this journey with you.
So go grab your favorite journal and pen and your hot beverage, and let's do this. Welcome back, Catholic Divas, to Cycles and Sanctity. We are Mama Jane and Mama Vicky, and we're so glad that you're with us. We are going to be talking today about the joy of trusting our bodies. But before that, I want to mention we had a listener that reached out to me particularly and was just asking me about a couple of podcast episodes that we did before. We did an episode on the joy of staying at home and the joy of a working mom. And she just asked me about discernment, like, did we talk about that? We didn't talk about that. We may talk about that in a different episode. What we're doing right now with this series is really trying to help you be more mindful of the joy. Joy is a fruit of the Spirit, but it's also an attitude and it's also an emotion. And as we've spoken many times on this podcast, our thoughts activate the emotions, our emotions create the actions that we desire, and then the actions create the fruit. And like Mama Vicky always says, she was just so surprised to realize that we had choices on our thinking. And so that's really what we hope this series of joy is that I heard of a phrase, equal airtime. Like, what are you listening to? Are you listening to the negative, the depression, the anxiety, the complaining, or are you listening to the joy? So Mama Vicky.
Hi, Mama Jane. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Sorry. On the other note of doing this series, for me, when we come in and our topic is to discuss the joy, that helps us with our own joy.
Yeah.
You know, I think we all have to look at it, but it's right. If you look at the joy of trusting your body rather than like the angst about your body or poor body image or anything like this, you're taking that negative connotation. But when you're like the joy of trusting your body, it just, even that first line makes you think, yeah, I mean, this is a happy thing. And I just had a scripture I read the other day, and it just really moved me that God does not want us to be depressed. I'm not saying that that attitude will knock out any depression or sadness or frustration in your life, but for some reason that really spoke to me. God wants us to be joyful. He created us for love and for joy and for happiness. And so striving for joy and looking for the positive in all situations and trusting that God will provide no matter how bleak it looks or great it looks. I just that was motivational to me. So I'm excited about the joy of trusting your body because as women, our society subliminally tells us how we shouldn't trust our body.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting going back about that joy. There's this beautiful movie, and hopefully I can remember the actual movie. It's gone from my brain right now, but it's a French story about a Jewish man, I think in Poland, and he meets this Christian woman. They get married, and he's always joyful. He's always happy. He's always kind of playing jokes and things like that. And he gets round up by the Nazis, and she chooses to go as well.
Wow.
And she's like, wait. And he's like, well, you're not Jewish. You're okay. And he's like, no. If my husband's going, I'm going too. But of course they were separated. And the other part of it is that they hid their son, but their son came along. And so he played a game with his son in the concentration camp. And it was it's an amazing, I have to find this. Hopefully we'll be able to find it before we actually drop the podcast. I'll look into it. But you talk about joy in a horrific, horrible situation.
Well, and Frank.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. So we always have that opportunity to find joy in whatever circumstances. So
the more we look at that, like that's an extreme situation. Fortunately, if you're listening to this podcast, you're not in a concentration camp,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But you absolutely, and there's countless stories of our saints and men and women in the church that are honored that, despite very bleak circumstances, have chosen joy. So it is a choice. And Mama Jane does a great job coaching with this. And I do think people do need to be coached on this because we have a natural inclination to go to the negative. But no matter what your situation, if you look and find the tiniest of joys, then your brain will want more. You will learn, your brain
Exactly.
will start changing from, like, looking for the, "Oh, no, why can't we?" or "Well, this won't work," to the, "Well, gosh, the sun was out for an hour today," or "It was light for 10 minutes longer today." It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It can be, but it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, again, it's training our brain to find the joy.
Mhm,
It's training our brain. But sometimes, like I know for myself in my own journey, that is actually a game that I created for myself at one point because I was so depressed and I was so sad. And I knew through personal development that I could change my thoughts, but I didn't even know what the feeling of joy was. And so what I did was I just literally, this is, gosh, 15, 16 years ago, I would ask myself, does this bring me joy? I
mhm,
would drive around. There's a beautiful neighborhood that has these beautiful, beautiful $1 million and more houses. And I would just look at them. I would look at the flowers. Does this bring me joy? As I'm eating something, does this bring me joy? That was always my wonder question. Is this bringing me joy? And then I would discern yes or no, or how much joy it was bringing me. And
mhm,
I was able to think and realize, like, oh, you know what? This doesn't bring me joy. So why would I want to do it? It is that discernment, it's that reflection. And it helped me really listen to what I wanted to hear because I wanted to move in the direction of joy.
mhm,
And so it gave me that opportunity to make better choices. And going back to the theme today of trusting your body, just even saying the word trust your body, that can bring up a lot of emotion and triggers for others. And again, I'm going to use myself as an example. I remember a long time ago when my children were still in the house, they were in a choir, and this choir director did private coaching voice lessons. And I thought, I want to learn how to sing really well. Like, I just want to learn how to sing. And she would give me this new music and she'd say, okay, 1, 2, and I'm like, "Wait, wait, wait, I've never heard the song." And she's like, "Your body knows." I don't know how to read I don't know how to read music, like, I'm not a musician, I kept saying that, and she'd say, "Your voice knows what to do. Trust your voice." And that was such a profound experience for me of trusting my voice that it would go on the note that it was called, and I would be amazed. Like, we would practice one song and I would get it right, but I would freak out if it was a song that I had never seen before. I didn't know anything. Like, my brain just was like, "I don't know what to do," you know?
Well, as
And sh
women, that happens a lot to us
yes.
because when you get your cycle, even if you come from a place where that it was very well explained and you know what to anticipate, when it's actually happening to you, it's the first time and you're like, "Oh gosh, oh gosh." And I find this often in my work. I mean, women, I still have not found a way to explain what a true contraction, what birth feels like to a first-time mom. I think it is meant for each woman to experience. But I do see the profound difference between a woman that says, "I don't know what's going I mean, I have an idea, I know I can do it," to a woman that's, like, comes in with fear. Like, the idea of, like, "I'm gonna need help to do this, my body's not ready, if I feel pain, I can't do it." And there's a huge difference in the course that your parenting and your mothering role takes, and that sets the pace for trusting our body.
Mhm.
And this leads us to our cycle. This is cycles and sanctity. So,
Yeah, do we trust our body to cycle well? There's been many times this, but I find there is a tendency with my phlegmatic clients because phlegmatics like constancy, but when I'm training a girl how to track her cycle, there's a thought that something's wrong with my cycle when from one menstruation to the other menstruation is 29 days, and this month it's 32 days. And the thought is something's wrong with my cycle. And I have to remind them, I have a document that reminds them what's a normal range, what a normal range of a cycle. You don't cycle every single day. Your period does not start every single month on day 29 or, 30, because we're not the same person from last month,
And
right?
just think about it. I mean, some days you wake up and you feel a little more motivated to tackle the day and your arms and legs and body. Let's say you do a exercise practice. Let's say just even compare it to going on a walk. Some days you got to really make yourself go out there and walk, and your body is like, I don't know if I love this. And then some
Yeah.
days you walk and you're like, this is phenomenal. I
Mm.
feel good. There's no aches and pains. And so our bodies are fluctuating. I refer to a lot of things as a dance.
Mhm.
I mean, we're always in a dance with our body, and the dance steps change and the music changes, and our bodies can adapt to it. And that's why, I think sometimes for me, since we're using ourselves, natural family planning, I always knew I wanted to do it. And natural family planning has come a long way. Like in the very beginning, we didn't have a whole lot of reliable ways to do it, or they seemed to me complicated. Moms are busy, really, no matter what stage of life, but especially with little kids. And I find this in general with breastfeeding. I help moms breastfeed. The more tools you throw in to quote help, like the more it becomes overwhelming. And so
Yeah.
I'm not saying all tools are bad, but
Mhm.
let's very, very discretionary on what tools we choose to use.
Mhm.
And what I love about Billings is there just isn't a whole lot to do.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one of my own thoughts is a lot of the newer forms of natural family planning underline this statement, this idea of that you can't trust your body.
Mhm.
Instead of where that's one of the reasons why I really resonated with Billings, especially as a teacher. I just really became so appreciative of the fact that I literally can teach any woman. It doesn't matter her economic situation, it doesn't matter her language, it doesn't matter her education. I can even teach a blind woman, which is really cool. And statistically, one of the cool stories I love about Dr. Lynn Billings is she taught fisherwomen in the Fiji Islands who literally would spend their day in the Pacific Ocean catching fish. Like, how cool is that? And I think that's the beauty, is that when we become trusting in our body, that our body can do what it's made to do, right?
And God would not absolutely. I mean, we are the makers of the people, ladies.
Yes.
That is God 100% put us here to
Yes.
grow the people, and now we need our partner, to our husband, to make the people, but we are the nurturers, the growers, and our body was meant to grow them. A lot of times in this modern day labor and delivery, people make sarcastic remarks like, if a man could do this, a man is not meant to do it. A man has other things to do that we are not meant to do. They've got some more muscle mass, they've got more strength to do things in a different capacity, because if you birth a child or mother, however, like we just have different strengths, and trusting your body also helps you trust God.
Yes. Yes, and that's really one of the reasons, Vicky, that I really wanted to call this podcast Cycles and Sanctity, because I really see it as, how do we draw closer to the Lord the more we understand ourselves?
And I want to touch on, let's say your body, quote, doesn't work right in our minds.
It could be a fact, like, you could have a serious disease, a dysfunction, or like our dear friend Jen de la Crosse, whose tumor has gone down. But I mean, the fact is she has brain cancer, and
Correct.
her body doesn't like, so there are some things that her body's not able to do at this moment.
Right. Or if we're talking about motherhood and you're struggling with infertility, even though you're doing, quote, all the right things, it doesn't mean your body is broken. God has
Mhm.
another purpose for your body. And the cycles and sanctity really helps you find that out. Like when you're doubting your body, or maybe you're the other way around and you're like, wow, my body just won't stop wanting to make kids. Like, and so we all have a role and a mission. This was, I believe, last month. I just always love the scripture where St. Paul uses the body compared to the church. Would you cut off a leg if your leg was acting weird? No. I mean, and does your arm have anything to do with your leg is doing? No. But do we need the arm and a leg to walk down the street? Yes. Or do we need to know how to compensate for the leg that isn't working? And God is always good. It's
Yes.
us humans that think maybe he isn't, and that we're suffering an undue cross, and get stuck in the why nots. And so the Lord just wants, he wants good for your body. And another example I'll use is, let's say a mom comes in and she wants to go natural. I'll try to stay focused on this little, because I could go for hours on that subject.
Yes.
And then for some reason, your body does not quote cooperate. Like you do all the things, you've taken childbirth class, you're going natural, you're doing all the movements, you've taken all the training, and for some reason your body doesn't progress, or the baby is in there cattywampus, and you end up having an operational delivery. Your body did not fail you. Your body grew a human,
Yes.
and so your body did not fail you. And there's another road God has you going down. Because a lot of times, guys, how many times have I read lately? I mean, God is trying to send me a message as always, and I'm just such a stubborn listener. It's not our job to make these decisions. It's our job to trust God. He
Yeah.
doesn't say, "Hey, Vicky, go do what you want to do, and then let me know how that works out, and I'll come in clutch." No, he says, "Hey, this is none of your business. You need to get up and follow my will." and and we fight it so much we don't even mean to. So women, I mean, since the dawn of time, I believe, from the fall of humanity, our cycle has been sometimes a source of shame. Even in biblical times, bleeding
Yeah.
women have to get in their tent. We
Mhm.
can't be around the bleeding women; they're weird, and we know that that's not true. But still, I feel like it comes with original sin, our responsibility for the cycle, or how the cycle affects us. And
Yeah, Father Mike Schmitz, I remember when I was listening to Bible in a Year, he talked a lot about that as far as like there could be a tone of when you read the Old Testament of a tone
mhm,
of a thought that menstruating women were unclean. That was he talked
right,
about the word unclean and he talks about unclean doesn't mean bad. It's part of the whole thing was the blood was so sacred.
right,
So that is one of those interesting aspects, but again, women in the Old Testament, I was reading the other day on Deuteronomy, is the fact that, like, when they came out, when the Israelites were about to go into the promised land, and Moses is, like, kinda, like, downloading all of these extra laws, right, in Deuteronomy, one of the things that they were required to do is when a man gets married, he was exempt from any kind of extra work or any kind of military for 1 year
right, for
so
your
that
year, yeah.
he could enjoy his wife.
Mhm,
Like, I just thought that was always so cool, like, he
mhm,
had a whole year of enjoyment, like, "No, no, no, we understand how important marriage is, and we understand how important coming together and becoming one is, so you're not required to go fight the battles or anything like that." I always kind of just wondered, like, when I read that, I remember reading that and thinking, "Wow, what a gift God gave us in that quote unquote law," 'cause, again, we kind of have these laws that we think are so restricting, and actually it gives us freedom.
mhm.
And
I
it's
mean, ultimately, doesn't discipline give you freedom?
yeah, and that's
Obedience
what
is what gives you freedom.
exactly, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to really kind of focus on is, like, one of the reasons why we have this societal underlying current of noise of we don't trust our body is because of the invention of the pill.
Oh,
The
yeah.
whole premise of the pill or contraception is that you can't trust your body not to make a baby, or you can't trust yourself to know when to have the marital embrace so that you wouldn't make a baby. And
And just
it's
think of how many women say, "Oh, my birth control failed me."
I know, I was just gonna go there. It does, it makes me and when I teach my NFP classes, I do say that. I kinda tell them, I'm like, you should do your own little survey and just ask around, like, your mothers, your aunts, your
Right.
grandmothers, because the pill, for those of you who don't know, the pill was started to market in 1965, and now we are here in 2025. So we've had, what, 60 years of the pill? It's 2 generations, 2 and a half, really, because
Yeah,
at
yeah,
65,
yes.
those women, so the great-grandmothers and the mothers and then the you know? So it's that thought that we have to go on contraception because our body doesn't work.
Well, divas,
It's
if you're out there and you've had a baby in the hospital, I guarantee you're asked a question, "So what birth control?" I mean, your baby's minutes out of your body, and they're like, "So what birth control are you gonna be using?"
yes, 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 exactly.
You can't even draw a breath after your baby's out practically. And, God puts that in place
Yeah,
by exclusively breastfeeding. That's what you're gonna do for birth control for a naturally not too close baby.
naturally child spacing. And we're going to include in the show notes, we have an actual free ebook on natural child spacing talking about breastfeeding and natural cycling and how to recognize when your cycle comes back and tips to extend that natural, what's it called? Infertility, really what it is. It's your
Mhm.
body is
Or
infertile.
amenorrhea, like not
Yes.
having a period.
Yes,
Yes.
or even just not cycling because you could still have the period but not ovulate. So it suppresses the ovulation, which is again, it's the beautiful thing, but we're not taught these things. So, and ladies, please hear us. If you are one of our listeners who is practicing contraception, who had never heard of this, or I know for myself, I wasn't taught any of this.
Mhm.
And it's why I love talking about it because I felt such freedom and such joy when I discovered that I was able to not rely on something else, that I didn't have to suppress my ovulation. I didn't have to suppress the way my body naturally works, that I can actually work with my body and trust my body through natural family planning, through charting. And there is a scientific methodology, which is so beautiful. So
Well,
please
it
hear
also
us that,
ties
yeah,
it
we're
also
not
ties your
condemning, we're not judging,
no, absolutely not,
we're loving you.
because we all have our own walks and I definitely didn't know, and so many women don't. And so
Exactly.
it's gonna be kinda like the joy of discovering the option of natural family planning.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
education is power, and we don't educate our women. I mean, women have to really seek justification or validation that their bodies are working, and they don't need any intervention. Most of us women don't need and most people don't need intervention. I mean, we don't need, quote, "need" a doctor.
Yeah.
To me, doctors I mean, I know you guys are like, "Vicky, aren't you a nurse?" But that aside, doctors are again, a tool to use, like, when there's a disorder, but your natural cycle is not a disorder.
Yeah.
Birth is
Exactly.
not a disorder. Breastfeeding is not a disorder.
Yes.
Menopause is not a disorder, and I'd love to touch on that because our society really we struggle throughout motherhood. But in that perimenopause where your body's kinda changing, your body makeup is changing,
Mhm.
so even if you go on the strictest of diets and you're doing all these things, still your body just settles differently. The other day, I was thinking I personally was take a 15-year-old homecoming dress shopping, and that'll humble you right on down because it doesn't matter what size a 15-year-old is compared to whatever age you are as a mother. You kinda look in the mirror and you're like, "Wow, this old gal's looking a little worn out." But we're not supposed I mean, youth is supposed to look like that. And I said in my brain, I just told myself, "I'm a grandma. I am supposed to be a little squishy." Nobody wants
Yes.
they're not looking for some sexy 15-year-old going to her first dance, awkwardly walking in short heels.
That's right.
So, I'm supposed to have a little love around my body from the work I have put in.
Yes, and that's another area, another stage in life of trusting our bodies, is that do we trust our bodies to process I use the word picture of perimenopause as like a bridge.
Mhm.
You don't really know how long the bridge is, and you're going into a new land. Postmenopausal is really a new land, and it's a new way of life, and there's so much growth and there's so much adventure. I don't know whether it's just because I've been healing myself through the whole perimenopause phase, and so I'm in such a glorious time in my life as a postmenopausal woman. I don't think I ever really thought about it, but I'm really enjoying postmenopausal.
I really love it. Mamas, that's the thing, whatever stage you are in hearing this podcast, it is always a bridge. I mean, we bridge from girlhood to womanhood to mothering to postmenopausal to grandmothering. And again, I'm not necessarily saying if you don't have children for whatever reason that you don't qualify for this because all women's bodies go through this. I mean, we all age, we walk through life. And honestly,
Mhm.
life is kind of a big bridge that's a little foggy at the end. You don't know where you're going to end up, but you have to trust on the other end of that fog is light.
Yeah. Mhm.
And
Eh
again, that's looking at it joyously.
yes.
You don't look at the bridge and be like, "How long is this thing?" Like,
Yeah.
look at the fog. Nobody can ever see through that fog. You have to get up every day and be like, "Wow, this is the bridge God built for me."
Yes.
Because it's so easy, especially I just wanna touch again, I did have babies easily and a long for a long time because of my brokenness. I put all my worth into having babies. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get tearful thinking about it.
Mhm.
I'm the crier of the show. Clearly, Mama
No,
Jane can keep it together. But
no,
but
this time for that.
when you do trust your body in a certain thing and you put all your eggs in that basket, I mean, your body is not going to stay the same, it's not meant to. So,
Mhm,
what I for me, I had to learn how to look at the joy and the gratitude. Thank you for letting my body do this. Thank you for letting me have that joy, have that confidence, but
mhm,
the Lord it didn't mean for me to leave all my confidence there. It was building blocks. I just didn't
mhm.
see it at the time. So,
Yeah,
the Lord always has us on a journey no matter what, Mama Jane and I don't know if we told the whole story, but my mom, her sister got really sick, and so many people said her body would not come back from this.
yeah,
And I mean, this was 1996. She was sick and thought that was it. And it's 2025. And
yeah.
believe me, she's alive and kicking
And
and
she really is
wise.
healthy and has taken care of herself and is such a blessing, and even just watching her find the joy in her own body, going to her gym class every day, understanding what her body can take, what her body can't take. It's that do I trust my body? And part of that trust, it's something I want to go back to again. You said something so powerful, Vicky, about when we trust our body, we're also learning to trust our Lord, right? And
Yes.
I'm listening to Catechism a year
Mm.
this year. I've been pretty faithful. I thought I was going to do both of them and I just had to let go. And I was like, no, I'm a catechist. I really want to listen to Catechism in a year. And the beginning of the Catechism really talks about how God continually reveals himself, right? He hasn't given the whole revelation at the beginning. He's just always revealing himself, always revealing himself. And I think that's the other aspect you said that at the beginning, because of your own woundedness, your own brokenness, you put all your confidence eggs into that ability to have children and the ability to be a good mother. And you realize now that there's other ways that the Lord is showing you to be confident and that He delights in you, that He finds you glorious, and that literally we are God's masterpiece. St. Paul reminds us in Ephesians that we are God's masterpiece, but we don't look at that as a masterpiece. We don't always look at our bodies as a masterpiece. We don't always look at our brains as masterpieces. And it is really just that message, ladies, that we really want to exhort
Drive
to
home.
you. And yeah, just pour into your hearts that trusting your body is a good and holy thing. Your bodies are good and holy. God created us male and female, and He created our female body in a certain way so that we can glorify Him in our own way. And every part of your body has a purpose. Your ovaries have a purpose, your uterus has a purpose, your breasts have a purpose, and men don't have those things. And it's just so glorious when we can acknowledge and be aware and talk about it without the shame, without the squirreliness, with the proper
Thanks.
terminologies, because they're just organs that have certain purpose to fulfill our life. And yet, what I find is when you become more trusting in your body, you do start to find the joy in your body.
You do. And then you're finding the joy in the Lord and the gratitude in the Lord. And then that applies to your life. I mean, Mama Jane and I both, we've had several conversations. We grew up in a very reactive family, both of us, very reactive. And I feel blessed. We have walked this journey to be where we are today. I mean, it wasn't always like this. And so I'm here to say, like, as a witness, once you trust your body and you trust the Lord, your life starts to fall into place. Like all
Yeah.
these things you were worrying about. And a lot of times you don't have that experience. You're young with your first kids or whatever age you are with your first kids. Again, it's that bridge with the fog at the end, and you're sitting here worried about the next plank. Well, don't that plank's there. Don't distrust this plank. You're like, I don't know, that plank looks a little shady. I'm not taking that step. Or I'm gonna go on the railing and walk on the edge like this. Well, you can, but that's a little more unstable. And so, ladies, if you're listening to this, I needed coaching to get this mindset. I couldn't do it on my own. Even just a discovery call, or if you're in the stage of pregnancy and breastfeeding and you're doubtful and the feedback you're getting from people you talk to is, you don't really have to worry about that. The hospital will take care of it or whatever.
Mm.
Please reach out to us. Join us on our
Yeah.
Facebook, email, and absolutely listen to this podcast because the sooner you trust your body and look for the joy in your body and trusting your body,
Hmm.
the, the sooner that's another avenue of joy coming into your heart. And
Yeah.
not every day. I mean, every day us humans have to get up and choose joy. Just
Yep.
like we both have a lot of young adult children, and they're all finding new relationships. Like they're finding their partners in life. And I can't tell you how many times recently God is sending me a message. I need to get it. I tell them love is a choice because I know you're all smitten with said person. And usually they come to me after they've had some kind of argument or a disagreement, or they had a revelation that, whoa, my partner's thinking a whole different thing. And they think this is done and over with, or whatever. And I said, no, no, it's a choice because someday that new wears off. And then you look at this person you're with and you're like, why, why, did I, why does he chew like that?
Well, let's bring it back to the
Yeah.
body. I wanted to share something. You said something really important about the mindset, of course, and our Facebook group, because
Yes.
that is the community. And you shared with me an experience that you had as a labor and delivery nurse about this beautiful patient that you had who really had a desire to go natural. And she had some stuff, but everyone was supporting her, and it wasn't until her godmother came in that she could really embrace and hear the voice,
Mm.
and she could use her godmother's joy, confidence, trust in her own body to be able to work and labor and
Yes.
have those contractions. And really, that is what the gift that I mean, I'm getting chills because that is the gift that you give to mothers that are laboring, postpartum mothers, breastfeeding mothers, is a new mom especially, or a mom that is not in a state of being able to trust.
Mhm.
It's like that safety, like, no, trust me. I know how to help you. Let me walk with you and we'll do this together.
And
And
then,
that
like, yeah,
builds the trust, right? It's like
yeah.
it's whenever I teach a couple about natural family planning, I just use the analogy of the bike. Very rarely does a child jump on a bike and have the balance, the ability to balance on a bike. Now, some of them do, or some of them are pretty quick to learn, but that's my job, is to hold the bike as long as you need the balancing. And when, if you remember, like I remember, don't let go, mom, don't let go, let's go.
No, I don't
That's
think anybody
lacking.
forgets riding a bike or
Yeah.
learning how to ride a bike.
Exactly. But that's the trust. And sometimes you need another to pass on the trust. It's
Yes.
okay. It's okay. We've got it. And that's why we call our company Wisdom Wellness Coaching, because we have the wisdom between the two of us. We have over 100 years of wisdom, and we desire for your wellness, whether it's emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, physical wellness. We desire you to become the best version of yourself, and so that you can really become the masterpiece that God desires for you to become in order to serve the people that you're called to serve.
Yes. With your gift
Yeah.
and purpose, we all have
Yes. And with
charismas and
joy, right?
it's
With
joy.
joy.
It is joyful. So, and like you said, it takes a sisterhood to get that trust, to hold that bike.
Yeah.
So we wanna be a part of your sisterhood.
Yeah.
And
And as part of the sisterhood, we're going to give you a little bit of soul work. As
mhm,
a coach, I like to ask good questions. So, again, this is all about journaling, giving yourself maybe 5 or 10 minutes quiet time, either after dropping the kids off at school or during lunch while you're at work or in the evening after the kids go to bed, whatever time, or maybe on a Sunday. Ask yourself these questions. The first question I want to encourage you to really meditate and reflect on is, how do I trust my body?
mm,
Find the ways that you do trust your body. The second question is, how could I trust my body more? In what ways am I not trusting my body? Where can I trust my body more? And then I always go back to gratitude. Gratitude and joy just go hand in hand. Maybe if you can, for a week or so, offer, Lord, I thank you for my body because.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that will find the joy. Gratitude, again, gratitude and joy kind of go hand in hand, and it's a fruit of the spirit, right? Joy is a fruit of the spirit. And when we're thankful, it shifts and acknowledging like what the gift is, right?
and again, finding that joy, your brain wants more of it.
Yes,
Brain's like, "Well, that feels good. What else am I grateful for? What else does my body do? Or what else?" And then it just spills out into your life.
yes,
And
exactly.
and
It,
it's easier to come back to on the days you're not looking for the gratitude.
Yeah.
because you'll start to feel like, why do I feel unrest? Why do I
Yeah.
not trust this
Mhm.
process? So come on over, ladies, come to our Facebook. And if you've never heard of Billings, you've never heard of natural family planning, also that brings a trust in your relationship. I mean, I jumped off topic because at the end, it's all about communication with your person that you're with in life. And Billings or any natural family planning is a beautiful way to open the doors of communication.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
fortify.
Yeah. And actually, stay tuned next week because that's actually what the topic next week is trusting our spouse.
Well, there
And
we
that's
go,
going to
hand in
be a
hand.
whole nother thing. So, well, listen, ladies, we love you. We want to communicate with you. Reach out. It would really help us. We are at 10,000 downloads, but it would really help us if you put a review. We haven't received any reviews in a while, in a few months. And that just, again, it just helps the algorithm of the way podcasts work. It's just kind of like that record, the top 10 or the top 100 on the top 100 charts, because we have a desire for other women to hear this. So if it's been a blessing to you, pass it on. Please subscribe, download, all the things and review. And otherwise, meet us over on Facebook and we'd love to have a chat with you guys. God bless you till next week. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Go ahead and share it to your best friends. And it would really help us if you wrote a review. Tell us how we're doing. We want to hear from you.
And come on over to our Facebook page at Cycles and Sanctity and join our conversation. That's where we can talk every day and make this podcast into what you want to hear.
See you next week, Divas.